The Living Your Purpose is a series of 3 workshops that we're going to be doing. My name is Kathy McGowan. I am on staff for the southern region of the UUA. And I will be at all 3 sessions. We have a session this morning, this afternoon, and tomorrow morning. So this is workshop number 210, called Living Your Purpose. So today we are talking about core values and mission. This afternoon we will move more into the vision piece, talking about our aspirational values and the vision, how to go from mission to vision. And then tomorrow morning we're going to talk about, yeah, that's all nice and good, but how do you make it stick, right? That piece. So that will be tomorrow morning. So this is 1 and 3. You can come to any of the 3. You don't have to come to any of the others. If you want to tell your friends that if they miss this one, that they can come to the other 2 if they would like. One of the things that we are doing with this is that instead of just giving you lots of heady information for you to write down and take notes and take home, we are actually have a wonderful congregation with us, the Binghamton, New York congregation. Can we give them a shout out? So they have been going through a 3-year process of all of this mission vision stuff. And so we thought it would be really great for you to hear from a real live congregation about how you do this and also maybe what not to do. So we have a real live case study from Binghamton, and we're so thrilled that they are part of this. And they will be with us at all 3 sessions of this. So we are thrilled that they have come to be part of this process. Binghamton was founded in 1890, and they have about 220 members and an RE enrollment of around 90. Their average attendance on their big worship services on Sunday is around 165. And they were... Douglas Taylor is their current minister, and he was settled in 2003. Yeah, let's give Douglas a shout out. He's in the back. And they were accepted into the Threshold Congregation Program, which is a 3-year intensive program. And part of a key component of that program is this mission vision work that they've been doing. So they have been involved in this process for 3 years, so they've lived it for a while, so their story is a great one to tell. So welcome, it is wonderful to have you here, and I'm now going to turn it over to Joe Sullivan.
Good morning. I'm Joe Sullivan, and I serve on our UUA regional staff for the New England district. Specifically, I serve right now as the district executive for the Northern New England district of the New England region. And with me today for our first workshop of the series on core values and mission is the Reverend Dr. Francis Sink. And Francis is the developmental minister with the UU congregation of Sanford, Connecticut. And joining us from our case study congregation, the UU congregation of Binghamton, New York, is Addie Deacon, a lay leader, and JoAnn Freer.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you are here to share this workshop together this morning. When we come together to reflect on mission and discernment of mission, we immediately enter into a space of sharing heart to heart with each other, sharing our Unitarian Universalism, sharing what we bring to the world that we care so much about. So it is in that spirit that we offer these opening words for you this morning from the UUA Leadership Council. With humility and courage born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. We'd like to draw you into this conversation and reflection right away this morning. So we invite you to, as we lead off, to find a partner on either side of you. We're going to talk together in pairs briefly, very briefly. You're each going to have 2 minutes to speak to your partner about 2 questions that you bring with you this morning. You may not have known you were bringing these questions, but we are focusing you on these. The first question is, why are you here in this workshop this morning? What is it about your congregational life that motivates you to be here? And then the second question is, do you feel that your congregation knows or has known at some time its core values and mission? And how can you tell? So we invite you now to, the questions are here on the slide for you to remind yourself. Turn to your partner and one of you take 2 minutes to speak, and then we'll switch and give the other a chance.
So how did that feel? What did you hear from a neighbor? Anybody want to just shout something out and I'll shout it back?
Common problems.
Common problems. Making the mission statement actionable. Okay. Wow. Okay. Going to the balcony to view from a visionary place. Yes, back there. The gentleman. New minister, new mission. Okay. How many of you felt like your congregation knows or has known its core values and mission? You've experienced that. Okay. Good. Well, you've experienced it. Okay, so we have some in here who feel like they haven't experienced that. So I'm glad you're here. And here's what we're going to cover in our workshop today. Francis and I are going to begin by naming some assumptions that we bring to this work. And I'll say a little bit more about why we talk about assumptions and why we think this is important. Then we'll take a little bit of time to do a brief experience of the process, an experience that we call the experience of the holy, to give you just a little taste of a process that honors the assumptions we bring to this work. Then we'll hear from Addie and JoAnn about the case example from the UU congregation of Binghamton, their experience, the process that they went through, and some of the lessons they learned. And Francis will join them at the end to talk about some choice points in the process. Okay, the process you'll see today isn't the only process. Okay, as a matter of fact, it's the assumptions that help us to determine what's the process that's right for us. So Francis will talk about some choice points that you have to consider. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have time for some questions and answers. So Francis asked you, why are you here? And you might say, well, why are we here? It's a good question. Why are we here? I speak for myself, but I think I also spring from the sympathies of the others who are in this workshop series with me, and certainly those up here. We are here because our world needs healthy and vital Unitarian Universalist congregations. And we are here because congregations and communities are more healthy and vital when their actions are aligned with their values and with their sense of call or purpose, their mission to affect lives in the world. And we are here because that alignment, we can make that alignment more real when we intentionally discern the core values together, when we intentionally discern the mission together. So it's important, so because of that, Francis and I have come to certain assumptions that we have brought to this work, well-earned assumptions that we have come to both in our own lives, in congregational settings, and in our work in working with congregations. These are assumptions about this work that are appropriate and particular to discernment in religious communities. You'll notice that most of the assumptions we'll talk about come with questions, and framing powerful questions around our assumptions is an important piece of this work. So think about that too. So our first assumption is we assume meaning and connection. We assume meaning for what we seek to discern. You may choose a different meaning, but this is what we have mean in the work as I have done this. The core values are those timeless, transcendent qualities of our religious communities that we wish to carry forward to guide our future. All right? They form the broadest expression of what brings us together as a congregation or religious community. And mission, as I work with it, is as we work to embody the values, what overarching purpose calls to us? What overarching difference are we here to make in the world, and for whom? And we assume connection in that it's those values that inform how we think about mission. So there's a connection. The nested bowls you see is an image to show how the broadest expression holds the inner expression. Next, we assume accountability for this work, which leads us to the question, whose work is this? Well, it's the work of religious leadership. And in our congregations, all called, elected, appointed leaders are religious leaders. And it's the religious leaders whose job it is to guide and teach all of the people this process of discernment. Because it's a shared experience. We are the prophethood and priesthood of all believers. So it's the leaders who bring all into the process. And the ministers and religious professionals in the congregation, they have a particular role, a particular prophetic and contextualizing role to support the process. Okay. And it's a central role of trusteeship. What I mean by that is that in terms of accountability, the governing board should own this process. Because a governing board, its first and foremost role as a trustee is to see that the organization is on mission. Matter of fact, that's its primary fiduciary role. And if it doesn't have a mission, how can you know it's on mission? How can you know if you're spending any of your resources appropriately?
Our next assumption is that there is readiness for this work around core values and mission discernment. So this is always an important question, which is, well, are we ready to do this work, and how would we know if we are more ready than not? We also explored, as we were thinking about this workshop, that sometimes you learn in the process how you wish you had been more ready than you were at the time. You'll probably hear a little bit about that this morning. And yet, perhaps we can clue you into some things that could help you discern better. Is this the right time for your congregation to do mission work or to do another kind of work? The sources of your readiness actually come out of conditions and circumstances within your congregational life. There is a time when it becomes clear that there's a need for more clarity about what we were doing, more direction to guide where we are going in our shared ministry. It's possible that there is an older mission that has become not particularly meaningful or relevant to the current time. It actually could be in a drawer somewhere. It might not even appear on your masthead or your order of service, or even be something that people would know if you ask them, what is that? So there may be an old mission that is no longer of service to you. It's possible that you've done mission work and you have a serviceable mission and you've used it well, and in working it, you've gone deeper and discovered that you want to go further. It's fine to pick up that mission and take it to a next step. So the need for mission work doesn't always come out of a sense of lack. It can come out of a sense of wanting to move deeper and move forward. Some of your congregational leadership may have some new learning, such as a workshop like this or some other experience with your congregational consultants that have opened up possibilities for bringing your programs in alignment in a way that you hadn't imagined before, and it would take a new mission to do that. You may be having the experience that your congregation ministries are not working together, that they are going off in different directions, and you would like to have more unity. This would be another time of readiness for mission work. Another aspect of being ready is the readiness of your leadership to launch this process together. A readiness of being aware and then a readiness of being prepared. It's not good enough for the minister to say, well, I think it's time for us to do mission work, or for the board chair to say that, or for your committee on ministry to say that. It's a shared decision, just as it will be a shared process, that we are discerning together the need for new direction for how the congregation is going to go. It's also a part of this shared discernment. Some of the things you will be hearing at General Assembly this year about how our congregations are changing. The need for our congregational life is changing. What you learn about congregations and beyond may influence your sense of this is a time to start discerning new mission. These kinds of influences, you'll hear more, I'm sure this week we're all going to hear more about religion for the 21st century. This becomes a motivator to look at what are we doing and what are we ready to do. There's also readiness in terms of your congregation's work that you've already done. How is the leadership in terms of deep listening to each other? Shared discernment around common goals? Have you done some covenant work already that brings people into an understanding of how to talk to each other and listen to each other with deep respect? Have you had that experience of working together to cultivate a shared perspective around other issues? And if not, how could you bring that to your leadership or to the congregation in order to create more readiness to do this work together? We expect that every 5 to 7 years is a good time for some mission work, other ideals being in place, other ideal conditions being in place. Why is that? Every 5 to 7 years, you will have had a significant turnover in your congregation. And as you will experience in what we're doing this morning, this discernment process brings people into a deeper relationship with each other and with the congregation. And so for those reasons, it's an important part of your congregational growth that you take on this work, not only to get new direction, but for people to have a chance to experience this kind of deepening work with the holy together. I think this is a good place for us to invite Addie to begin to share what some of their experience was around readiness in their congregation.
Good morning. So the way that some of the things that were in place so that we knew that we were ready were our membership was stagnant. We fluctuate around 220 to 250 members and have not really been able to get past that into a solid 250 a membership for quite some time. We had sent several teams of leaders to the UU leadership team institute training. I think that might be just in our region. I'm not sure if that's something they do everywhere, but it's teams of leaders go from various congregations in the district and get together and have workshops. And I think through that process, a lot of our leaders became familiar with this, the shifting from a pastoral-sized church to a program-sized church and the difficulties involved in that transition, and we recognized ourselves in that, kind of stuck in that place. We had, and some of the things that we were stuck on were that we had programs and committees that were operating in silos, just kind of doing their own thing, not really collaborating. We had recognized a need to develop a program council, and had established it, but hadn't really fully formed into anything more than a let's get together and talk about what we did, each committee telling each other what we did last month, which didn't really seem useful to a lot of people. And I think at that time our board of trustees was operating, was responsible for more than what was really their responsibility. Anybody could bring any question to the board, really, whether it was the board's work or not. So those were some of the things that we noticed. And our previous existing mission statement was really, it was a poem. It said things like, as the sun revolves around the earth, or the earth revolves around the sun, and as the wind blows, and I don't know. It's lovely. It's really quite a lovely poem, but it was in no way anything that we could use to guide what we were doing, and that's how we ended up with people saying, well, let's just do what we want. So are we on to the next one? Okay. So then as far as the preparation that we did, as I said, we had sent several teams to ALTI, to the Training Institute. We had a pretty strong core group of leaders, both on our board and in our program council, and strong leadership in our staff, our minister and our director of religious education. And so this strong core group of leaders we sent to regional trainings and district trainings and that sort of thing. So we had done some work for development. And then as we were going through this process, we also, we became part of the Threshold Congregation program with our region. And as part of that, we engaged a significant amount of our leadership. I think we had probably at least 20 participants who participated in a workshop that lasted over 3 separate weekends, doing what was then called Healthy Congregations. Since then, I think we call it Smart Church. But really what it is it's like a leadership training that is based around systems theory, and it really helps to understand what introducing change into your congregation or the system will do, and how you can lead through that in a way that's not too rigid or not too lenient, dealing with the anxiety that comes up and staying connected. That, I think, was probably one of the most key things that we did in preparation for doing this work. And I think also working with our regional consultants, who had sort of the outside, they were neutral in the way, so that they could come in and just learn from us what we were experiencing without the anxiety of being the ones experiencing it. So they were able to help us unpack. We could say, well, we have this stagnant membership, and what do we do? We need a new mission, but what do we do? So we could unpack and say, well, our membership is stagnant because our members are not getting connected into our programs and becoming integrated into our community. And they're not becoming integrated and connected into our community because it's not clear how to do that. And it's not clear how to do that because we don't really know what we're about, and we don't have a clear focus. Oh, maybe we need a mission. Maybe we need a mission statement. And that's where that balcony view, I heard somebody say, came in.
Thanks, Addie. We will have time at the end for you to ask some more questions of the congregation. So we also assume that this work is grounded. Before you begin to think about your process, it's important that the leadership be thinking and just aware that this work is grounded in 3 particular ways that we want to highlight. One is the mission work is grounded in our Unitarian Universalist theology and our faith tradition. I'll be saying a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but it's a shared grounding for all of our congregations. It's also grounded in the personal experience of your congregation. We are about to share an experience together, the experience of the holy, that is a way of bringing that shared grounding of your living legacy forward and very present into the conversation about mission, the particular gifts that come out of your sharedness. And then there's the grounding in the context of time and place. That includes the size and the composition of your congregation, for sure, but it also includes reflection on your larger community that your congregation is within, and the world, the issues that you rub up against, that you can have an impact upon. It also is a reflection upon this particular time that you are in when you're doing the work together. What is the cry and the calling need that's there that your congregation hears?
Another assumption we bring is that we assume that there's an intentional connection between the process you choose to do for this work and the product of discerning core values and mission for the work. So we think about how can the process inform this work. We think about the process as being an embodiment of this product. How can the process help us to learn and cultivate practices of living Unitarian Universalism? Some of the things we think about when we think about process in this way for doing this kind of work is that this is what are the spiritual practices of leadership? Okay. What is it about discernment in religious communities that we should consider as one of the central practices of being a leader in our community? This process should be about stories past, about stories future that we want to live into. Our faith tradition is one that's built on the stories of our lives. It should be about the art of listening and speaking from the heart. Again, practices of living Unitarian Universalism. Cultivate those. This process should both reflect and help inform your DNA as a congregation. By that I mean, what is it that makes your congregation tick? What is it that makes it be able to pursue a mission in the world and to affect lives? This process should be one that helps to either regenerate that and certainly reflect upon it.
And then finally, we assume that there are certain overarching purposes that Unitarian Universalist congregations share. So the powerful question is, what is unique and what is shared among UU congregational missions? We can get very hung up about creating our own very personal, unique mission statement. And I think that process becomes lost because it's truly your mission statement will be unique because it grows out of your gifts, your personal experience, your context that I was referring to before, the time that you're doing this in. But the aspect that you share with all Unitarian Universalist congregations is part of what is carried forward in your mission. So you're exploring, how will we teach the faith? And by that, I don't mean what will our religious education program be doing. The question is, how will our congregation be teaching the faith of Unitarian Universalists in this 21st century context that we are involved in? How will we reflect ourselves, the core purposes of this transcending values that we hold as Unitarian Universalists? And then, in addition to that, how Do we change lives by living Unitarian Universalism? So the core of your uniqueness is how you will reflect this larger context that all of our congregations share by this faith that we hold so importantly and see as really necessary to changing lives in the world, our own and those that we touch. So just to summarize, these are the assumptions that we've named. We assume meaning and connection between the core values that the congregation holds and the mission. We assume that there is accountability for this work. We assume readiness to do this work. We assume grounding. We assume intentional connection between the process you create and the product that it produces. And we assume certain overarching purposes held by all Unitarian Universalist congregations.
Okay, now we're going to get to do it. So how is it that we can enter a process that helps us discern our core values and mission and honors these assumptions? It starts with connecting individual experience to the core values that bring us and keep us together in community in a process of intentional spiritual conversation that includes reflection, includes speaking from the heart, includes deep listening. We start with a question from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Why should not we have an original relationship with the universe? Emerson is pointing to what the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs and my friends at Unity Consulting, who taught me this process, what they call the experience of the holy. We could argue that the experience of the holy is universal. Transcendent qualities like union, interconnection, joy, wholeness, a sense of letting go of one's particular identity in order to experience the unity or deep connectedness that some call God. Sensing these in the moment of or in reflection upon, this is universal. Experience is absolutely at the center of our faith tradition. So we begin our work on core values and mission with an exercise that invites you into quiet contemplation of a time in your life when you experienced a glimpse of the holy, a moment of spiritual insight, a moment that left you breathless. As I've done this exercise a number of times in recent years, what's come to mind to me has been the one time in my life I experienced pure silence sitting on the edge of a cliff in the canyon lands of Utah, or the moments of birth of my children, or that time 2 days after Hurricane Katrina when I was with members of my congregation staffing an emergency relief center in the town hall of Sugar Land, Texas, and I encountered my first evacuee of New Orleans, who sat there having not slept for 48 hours or more, wondering what on earth he had lost. So I'd like you to take a moment now to think about a story you'd like to share with a partner about your experience of the holy. This handout that you got when you came in gives you a space at the top to jot notes, if that helps you. Please don't let language trip you up. We're just trying to give you a taste of this experience. If holy doesn't speak to you, translate it into something that speaks to you more clearly. Okay, I'm going to ask us now to take just a minute of time of quiet reflection, and you can think about an experience of the holy in your life. I know that's not enough time, but again, we're doing an exercise here. Let me tell you what we're going to do next, and I'd like you to pair up as you did at the beginning when we shared about why we were here. and you're going to spend 2 minutes sharing your experience of the holy with a partner. And as you listen to your partner's story, think about what values are underneath it. Okay, what qualities of the story are key to it being an experience of the holy? Is it interdependence? Is it reverence? Is it empowerment? Is it authenticity? Is it generosity? Is it freedom? What is it? This is not a conversation. One person tells their story for 2 minutes and you listen, and then you switch and you tell your story and your partner listens. Once you've both told your stories, we'll take 5 minutes to make a list of values that are embedded in your stories, the qualities that are key to making an experience of the holy. And then I'm going to ask you to choose 3, and no more than 3. You can choose 2 if you wish. Qualities that you both agree you want to carry forward into the life of your religious community. So you'll have only 5 minutes to make the longer list and choose 3 to bring forward, so don't agonize over it. Use the intuitive knowledge that we all possess, okay? This is just a taste of the process. And I'd like each pair then, with your list of 3, to get with another pair. And then you'll both share your 2 lists of 3. And again, the group of 4 will have 5 minutes to share a little bit, snippets of stories. You might see some commonality quite quickly between the values that underlie your stories. And you're going to pick 3 out of the group of 4, and no more than 3 that connect. Okay? While we go through this, the screen will have, it'll show how many minutes are left in each step of the exercise as we go through. Okay? So if you look up, and I will ring the bell as we transition. All right, so go ahead and get started.
It's like a real reality moment. Wait a minute.
The second person should be sharing their story now.
This whole experience of GA.
Okay, now you should be moving on. As a group of 3, as a group of 2, you should be discerning 3 values, coming up with 3 values that underlie your stories. We'll have 5 minutes, and I'll ring the bell at the end of this. So be working on the values. Okay, 1 more minute left in this step to come to your 3 values. Digging it louder doesn't help. Okay, it's now time to move to the last step, in which your pair joins another pair, please. So do this quickly. And in the next few minutes, you will share your 3 values, and they will share theirs, and you'll come up with 1 set of 3. You'll come up with 1 set of 3 in a group of 4. Time to come back. Okay, let's come back. If there's anything you're going to take away from this, is that you're now all experts in speed discernment. If we had a little bit more time, I would actually ask for a couple of you to share, but just a general sense of, have any of you done an experience like this before? Just let me show of hands. Okay. Maybe not called this, right? At the UU congregation of Binghamton, they took this process to their committees, their program council, to a lot of their small groups. And so they filled their broadest bowl of core values through this process, doing it with a number of small groups, certainly not doing it with this speed. There's no need to do it with this speed, okay? But by doing so, as an entire congregation, they came to 3 core values: interconnectedness, transcendence, and compassion. Francis will now come up and describe how the experience of the Holy informs and guides our moving from core values to mission.
So as Joe just pointed out, when you engage in this process, it sets up, like the experience of the Holy, it sets up 2 things automatically. The first of those is that you have now had a shared experience of having an immediate understanding of what the values are that are in the room together, if you imagine that this whole group had completed that process. So it's not an aspirational, it's not what we wish we valued, you actually know what you do value. And then if you think back to the nested bowls, you have clarified through those words that you keep arriving at, what are these core values that are then going to guide our mission discernment? So if we can just think back to the assumptions that we laid out earlier, how does this experience of the Holy become embedded to lead to the mission work? First of all, you would reflect, given that we have a Unitarian Universalist identity to live into and to teach, and given that we embody these values that we have named together, and then given the particular time and location and context and size and strength of our congregation today, we're ready to ask these mission discernment questions. And these are powerful questions that you could then move forward with. What is the difference that is made because we are here? Or another way of asking that, what difference in lives are we here to make, and for whom? Asking those questions grounded in this context. So this is a good place, I think, for us to invite the Binghamton congregation back up. We're going to have JoAnn come first to talk a little bit about the process that they went through and the lessons that they've learned from doing that together.
I want to take you into a little bit of our process as we moved along. We went through this profound experience of coming up with these words, and what happened next was the words were given to 3 poets in our congregation, and they were to write a mission statement. And the mission statement got written and it came out at a little event, and it was presented to the congregation of, look, we have a new mission statement. The experience of the Holy had been such a profound experience in our congregation and for the leadership that we went into the annual meeting with such a wonderful sense of confidence. We had done it right. And the congregation said, why don't you go back and try again? So in the sanctuary that morning, there was this sense of, what happened? We did it. And around the edges, there was just a little shade, light gray shade of a cloud, trying to seep in and say, oh, we didn't make it again. What then happened was the board said, okay, we want this rewritten. We're going to use our same 3 core values. We're going to go on, we're going to move on, we're not even going to stop and do more than shake the dust off our shoulders. So we gathered a group, and one of the poets volunteered to lead the group to write a new mission statement. We gathered the group, and she really wanted to have continuity between the first group of poets and now the growing group of poets. we invited every dissenter to participate in the meetings, to come to write with us. We worked for several months from the summer through November-ish and got a nice mission statement. We presented it at town hall meetings so that people had a chance to learn about it, to feel connected to it. And it was approved at a congregational meeting in December. So I just want to mention that the process started in October of 2011 and finished in December of 2012. So it was a good year and a few months that we worked on it, a couple of months that we worked on it. I think that's really all I just wanted to give you a sense of how that went, and I think that is enough.
Here's your mission statement.
Yes, our mission statement. This is what we did. We kind of changed it around. It says now, we offer a spiritual home where we explore, celebrate, and cherish our interconnectedness, encourage growth and transcendence, and act with justice and compassion. Thank you. I mentioned about the profound experience. We adjusted the process. I was really proud of how we adjusted the process. One of the lessons that we think we learned was that it was a very open process up until the writing, the first writing. And then it became closed and opaque. And we didn't really know, people didn't really know who the writers were. And that, I think, we have on occasion somewhat of a suspicious congregation. I will say, since healthy congregations, that is fading very nicely. We presented the poet's statement. We did it in a celebration, a dress-up celebration, where we were having dancing and bookmarks were handed out with the mission statement on it, and it was a fait accompli. Here it is, all you have to do is rubber stamp this at the meeting. And that's, I think, a mistake that we made. And that's it. That's all I'm going to cover. Addie's going to talk about the next point because she understands that.
So the other thing that I think we've learned since we did this mission work, which was really way in the beginning, it actually, some of it predates our work as Threshold Congregation. And since then, we've done a lot of this sort of visioning, discernment types of things for other things, such as our behavioral covenant and vision statement, that sort of thing. And I think the part that we didn't really get in the beginning was, okay, we did this experience of the holy with all the various groups, and we came up with a list of 40 words from all the various groups, and then we willowed those down into our 3 words, and then we were done. We're like, okay, we have our 3 words, go off. And I think what we could have done, and I think had we done this, we'd have like maybe even a more focused statement than we came up with, is if we had then taken those 3 words and done some more discernment, gathering people together to work on making statements. And we did something similar recently in work on our vision statement with Renee Rahutsky in a World Cafe style, where we, people write, you take these 3 words, and how would this relate to who we are as a congregation for you? And you write your statement. Somebody else writes your statement. You combine your statements. And then everybody gets to have input on the statement, and they get blended and morphed, and to the point where you don't recognize your statement anymore. And so you sort of let go of your own personal attachment, and you're involved in the process of it evolving, so that by the time the final statement comes out, you feel like you have a piece of it in there that you can recognize, even though it's not your own personal piece. So I think it gets more people involved, and it gets away from but I think we should use this word instead of that word kind of thing. I think they call that process World Cafe, right? I think if we had done something like that and given the people who were the poets, if we had given them 4 mission statements that we came up with in a World Cafe and said, here, take these and craft one, I think it would have been maybe even a more, I want to say more focused or even more rich statement than what we had. But I do want to say also that even though we may see our mission statement as imperfect now in hindsight, an imperfect mission statement is so much better to move forward with than none at all. And it's much better not to get hung up on perfectionism, but to move forward, because now, with the experience of a few years and seeing where we're going with our new long-range plan, I can see that in a few years we're going to be ready to do this again, and it's going to be way more exciting because we're even more laser-focused.
Let's just affirm again the good work of the Binghamton congregation. It was really fun to learn from them and to see how they put their thinking into action and through their process. I'm just going to highlight a few points that Addie's made. I'm going to go through them quickly because every process will be different. It will come out of your experience, but they did hit up against something that can happen. What if we encounter resistance? They had it after the word crafting that went on, but it could come at any point. What they demonstrated was the resilience to be able to say, we're going to adapt and we're going to move forward. And that you could have a choice to do something different from adapt or move forward, but we really encourage you to look at where do we go from here, whatever the resistance is that you're coming up against. Secondly, as Addie described, at the point of their word crafting, they did those larger, powerful questions about what does this mean for our mission. After they worked on the statement themselves, they then began to live into the statement. You have a choice point there to live into those powerful questions sooner, to come up with your values, to then take those into mission discernment, and then come to the word crafting later. And she mentioned a couple of processes that are good for that as well. The open space technology, World Cafe, and appreciative inquiry process could then take this core values work and move it into mission discernment. And then finally, we just want to add one other point, which is you also have a choice in the process to bring other partners, other voices into the conversation. Always important to ask whose voice is not around the table. Who are we not hearing from that we consider a part of our circle of caring? How could we include them in the process? Do we have community partners that we want to feel accountable to? And how could they participate in helping us shape the mission? So thinking about your partners in your mission is another choice point.
So we're coming to the end. We have a few minutes for questions, but I want, before we do that, just again to remind us that what we find that's most important is to think about those assumptions as you come into this work. The process you choose will be the process that works well for you. It will not be a perfect process. That's not the criteria for whether to do it or whether to continue to do it or whether at the end you feel like you've done it. Okay? The fact that once you become a mission-focused congregation, and you know that you're going to do this every 5 to 7 years, you'll do it different the next time. You will have learned something. You'll be a different congregation. Your leadership will have grown in their spiritual leadership. So be confident and be glad in that, okay?